conditionals. And compound conditionals basically mean we can have the word and in between two conditionals, or the word or. And for example, in which case, if we use and, that means both sides of the conditionals must be true in order for it to be true. And if we use or, that means either one of the sides can be true in order for it to execute true. And so an example that we can use is this quadrant here, this math quadrant here. If we're up in this first quadrant, that means x is greater than 0 and y is greater than 0. If we're in the second quadrant, that means x is less than 0 and y is greater than 0. And then we have the different conditions for quadrant 3 and quadrant 4. So I'm going to do the first two quadrants for you. And as far as the assignment, if you can do the other two, that as far as the project problem sets, that would be great. So let's go ahead and get
코멘트. 바이참. 컨트롤 슬래시. 아닌데? 이씨. 응? 이건 컨트롤 시프트 컨트롤 슬래시. 됐다. 어디 보자. 뭐가 잘못된 거지? find action by name. Control Shift A. Show the list available active. 플래시네. 여기서 왜 안 되냐? 자, 이거를 컨트롤 슬래시. 어? 뭐지? 이거 봐라. 안 된다 이거지. 컨트롤 슬래시가 안 되네. 나와서는 이거 세팅 키맨 알트 세미콜론 알트 알트 되게 되네. 이거는 컨트롤 시프트 커맨드 위로 불러온 컨트롤 시프트 넘버 왜 안 되냐고. 언더 코멘트.
Started with this. So we're going to have two variables, x and y, and let's make x that and y equal to 8.0. So they're both positive. So that means, let's go for the first quadrant. If x is greater than 0 and y is greater than 0, then under this condition, I'm going to print quad 1. Okay. So we'll put a space in there, and we got quad 1. So what's the other condition? If x is less than 0 and y is greater than 0, then this is quad 2. Okay, so let's go ahead and execute the script, and we're going to see that we get for the first one quad 1, and that's true. So if x is, let's say, negative 8 and y is positive 8, then we get quad 2. Now, we haven't worked out the other two cases, so let's say both of them are negative. We're not going to, let's see what we're going to get. And we don't get anything. So that's what I would like you to continue working on the problem set, is to fill it out. But the idea here is quite simple, is that we can use conditionals, not need only be one part associated with the if statement. We can actually have this conditional here and this conditional here, and then put an and or between them, and that provides this whole thing evaluates to either true or false, and we execute the code appropriately. So if this evaluates to true, then we have this quad 1. So there's many opportunities to add or to compound conditionals, and you can have as many ands on here as you want, and you can have ors, and you can put parentheses in there to show order of precedence of what you do first. So the idea is we can have many compounds in our conditionals. Okay, thank you, and go ahead and continue as your problem set to finish out and do the remaining quadrants for 3 and 4. Hello and welcome back to our beginning Python course. Today we're going to be looking at the while loop. And the while loop, like the if statement, has a conditional. And because it's conditional, that means it can be evaluated to true or false, and it always has the colon here, and it's indented just like we did with the if loop. Another idea that we need to know about the while loop is that anytime the variable that's part of the conditional, we must update it within the loop. Otherwise, we're going to have an infinite loop, and we definitely do not want to have that. So I know those are just some ideas, and let's go ahead and explain them a little bit more in detail with this example. So let's start off with a while loop, and usually you want to have initialize a variable which is going to be part of the while loop. And I'm going to do that count because this is a common example. So let's say count is assigned the value of 0. So here I have a variable, I've called it count. It's assigned the value of 0, and 0 is, or count is a integer. So now I'm going to say while, here's my statement, my while statement, while count is less than 10. And because this is a conditional, again, I'm putting a colon there, and I'm going to hit return, and I want to indent to 4 spaces. So everything that I indent here, everything that's indented is associated with the while statement. When I always want to update the variable in the conditional, so I need to update count here, otherwise this will go on forever. Count is assigned the value of count plus 1. So if I didn't have this statement, if I didn't update count, well, count starts off at 0, count is less than 10 because this is 0, it's less than 10, and it would just go on forever. It would go on forever, and we don't want that. So we have to have some update of the count variable as part of the conditional. So count is assigned the value of count plus 1. Now this does not make sense algebraically, but in code it's a very common construct, is that we take the current value of count, we increment it by 1, and that becomes the new value for count. Okay, so now let's go, what I want to do, I want to print count. Okay, so let's run this code, and we get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 10. So it starts off at 0, increments 1, becomes 1, print 1. Now is 1 less than 10? It comes back up here, yes. So now I can increment it again, print 2. Now is 2 less than 10? Yes. So I go do it again, and then I increment it. It's 3, and I keep doing this all the way until I get to 10, and then it is 10 less than 10, and that's false, and that's when I'm done, and I exit and I come back here. So let's actually put a statement here. Print done with loop. Okay. So there's a big difference here. If I kept the statement here and I run it, it's only going to show up once at the very, very bottom. Okay. Now if I made an error and I did this, and I kept it part of the loop, and I run the program, and you can see every time it's going through the loop, it's printing done with loop. So that's showing up 10 times. So what I really want to do, it's not really done with the loop yet. At this point, it is done with the loop, and that's why I don't indent it. So both of these are indented, so they are associated with the while loop, and they are executed when this conditional evaluates to true. Okay, so a simple question might be now is, well, what if I only want to print the even numbers? How can I just not print 1, 3, and 5, and just print the 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10? Well, one simple way might be just to increment our counters to do this. Let's try to run this and see what we get. So now we get 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, done with the loop. Well, what if I just want to print the odd numbers? Okay. So odd numbers, again, they increment by 2, so everything's the same idea except my starting point. My starting point might be here, it might be 1. That would be a good test. Oh, but if I do that, I've skipped the 1 because it goes 1 and then it goes straight to 3, and I never print out the 3. So I can just make this a -1. -1. So if the count is initialized to -1 and I run the script, and now I get 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11. So those are some ideas. You can experiment with the while loop. You can put nested statements in here. You can put if statements and have them indent even further. We'll be looking at that more. But basically this is an introduction to loops, and we need to remember loops involve a conditional, therefore they need the colon, and we must update the variable in the conditional. In this case, the variable in the conditional is count, so we use count, assign the value of count plus 2, so we are updating it here. You can also have compound conditionals, just like we did with the if statements, and these are just very powerful. So this is an introduction. Work on the problem sets. The only way you will learn to code is to practice, so there's a good... In our previous lecture, we looked at the basics of while loops, and we're going to continue that theme today. We're going to look at some examples with while loops.
8분이야, 8분. 잘 갔다 와. 이면 이따 알지?